The hero in the flames, how a gas leak, a betrayal, and an unlikely savior redefined the bold and the beautiful. What if the monster you feared most was the only one who could save you? And what if the quiet, unassuming person you pitied was the monster, hiding in plain sight? In the world of the bold and the beautiful, where loyalties are as fragile as spun glass and betrayal is a currency traded daily, a single, catastrophic event has shattered all preconceived notions of hero and villain. A seemingly tranquil evening at the Forrester Cliff House descended into a fiery nightmare, culminating in an explosion that not only threatened the life of Steffy Forrester but also detonated the very foundations of trust, loyalty, and identity within the entire Forrester-Logan Spencer clan. This was no mere accident. It was an act of calculated malice, born from a festering resentment that had been allowed to curdle into a murderous plot. At the heart of this shocking drama are two women whose roles have been violently, irrevocably reversed. Sheila Carter, the infamous villainess whose shadow has loomed over the family for decades, and Luna Nozawa, the seemingly sweet, misunderstood young woman whose quiet pain concealed a dark and terrifying capacity for destruction. The inferno that consumed the Cliff House did more than just burn wood and shatter windows. It exposed a truth so profound and disturbing that it has left every character questioning who they can trust and whether forgiveness is even possible in the face of such a profound betrayal. To understand the shockwaves still rocking Los Angeles to its core, we must delve into the deceptive calm before the storm, the calculated sabotage that set the stage for tragedy, and the astonishing act of heroism that came from the most unexpected of sources. Part 1. The Deceptive Calm, a stage set for disaster. The evening began with a deceptive serenity, a rare moment of peace for Steffy Forrester. At the iconic Cliff House, a bastion of both incredible wealth and heartbreaking drama, the sun was setting beyond the waves, casting a golden, painterly glow through the expansive glass windows. With her son, Hayes, safely away with his grandfather and her husband, Finn, covering a late shift at the hospital, Steffy was finally alone. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she felt a sense of safety and contentment. She hummed quietly to herself as she prepped for a simple dinner, the domestic tranquility a stark contrast to the turbulent chaos that had so often defined her life. The house, for once, felt like a sanctuary, not a gilded cage. But she had no idea that death was already inside her home. It was quiet, invisible, and waiting patiently beneath the surface. In the forgotten confines of the basement, a place no one ever goes, a sinister plan had been expertly executed. A gas line, the silent artery of the home, had been tampered with. It wasn't a crude rupture or a violent slash, it was a more insidious act. The pressure seal had been loosened with chilling precision, just enough to allow a silent, odorless leak to build pressure over hours, turning the very air in the house into an invisible, combustible bomb. The mastermind behind this cold, calculated act of malice was a face no one would ever suspect, Luna Nozawa. Earlier that day, under the innocent pretense of dropping off a forgotten toy for Hayes, Luna had let herself into the house. Armed with gloves and a small set of tools, she slipped into the basement, her movements swift and purposeful. She made her adjustments without remorse, leaving no alarms, no mess, just a plan set in motion. This was not a crime of passion, it was a carefully orchestrated act of vengeance. Across town, in her modest apartment, Sheila Carter felt a gnawing unease. Call it instinct, call it a villain's sixth sense for impending chaos, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She had been trying, truly trying, to walk the line Finn had drawn for her, to stay quiet, to behave, to rebuild whatever fragile trust she had left with her son. But on this night, a primal premonition, a dark and swirling sense that something terrible was about to happen, took hold. And strangely, her thoughts kept drifting to Luna. Sheila, more than anyone, understood the corrosive nature of obsession. She had lived long enough in the shadows to recognize the signs, the way Luna's smile tightened into a brittle mask whenever Steffy entered a room, the flicker of raw, possessive anger in her eyes when Finn mentioned his wife. To everyone else, Luna appeared sweet, reformed, a misunderstood victim of circumstance. But Sheila knew better. She saw a growing hunger for revenge, a bitterness that had festered into something far more dangerous. Driven by an impulse she couldn't explain, Sheila grabbed her keys and got in her car. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to. Her instincts, honed by a lifetime of turmoil, were leading her straight to the Cliff House. Part 2. The Inferno, Heroism from the Ashes of Hatred. As Steffi lit the stovetop to sauté vegetables, the first wave of accumulated gas ignited. The explosion was the kind of blast that could be felt in the bones, a deafening boom that echoed across the cliffs and sent birds scattering into the night sky. The magnificent windows of the Cliff House shattered outward, spraying glass like shrapnel. Flames erupted from the kitchen, licking at the wooden beams as thick, choking smoke rolled upward in suffocating waves. The force of the explosion launched Steffi backward. Her head collided with the hard edge of the marble island, and she crumpled to the floor as blood began to pool beneath her temple. Her limbs went limp, her world fading to black. Just as the house was consumed by the inferno, Sheila's car screeched to a halt in the driveway. As she turned onto the road leading up to the home, the wind had shifted, and her nose had picked up the faint, foul smell of gas. Now, seeing the flames, her heart slammed against her chest. She parked haphazardly and rushed to the front door, banging with a desperate urgency. "Steffi," she yelled, her voice raw. There was no response. Without a second's hesitation, the woman who had once shot Steffi and left her for dead now plunged into the very inferno that threatened to claim her. She kicked open the front door, shielding her face from the blistering heat. The air inside was already unbreathable, a toxic mix of smoke and fumes. Coughing violently, Sheila stumbled through the smoke-filled living room. "Steffi," she shouted again, her voice cracking. She found her lying motionless beneath a fallen cabinet door, partially buried in debris. One look was all it took. Steffi was alive, but barely. In that moment, Sheila didn't hesitate. All the years of hatred, rivalry, and violence evaporated in the face of a single, primal instinct, to save her son's wife, the mother of her grandson. She pulled Steffi free with brute strength, wrapped an arm around her shoulder, and began the agonizing process of dragging her out, step by agonizing step, toward the door. Just as they cleared the threshold, a second, more powerful explosion tore through the foundation, sending sparks and timber flying into the air. The force of the blast sent them both tumbling onto the grass. Sheila collapsed, holding Steffi in her arms, both of them coughing, singed, and shaken, but alive. If Sheila had arrived even 30 seconds later, Steffi would have died. The sound of sirens pierced the smoky night air as emergency responders raced to the scene. Amid the chaos, one image stunned everyone who arrived. Sheila Carter, the notorious villainess, kneeling in the grass, cradling Steffi Forrester's nearly lifeless body as if protecting her from the very flames that almost took her life. It was a surreal, incomprehensible tableau that defied all logic. Finn screeched into the driveway moments later, his heart pounding in his throat, unsure of what he would find. But nothing could have prepared him for the sight before him, his estranged, dangerous mother performing CPR on his unconscious wife. Sheila's hands were trembling, her voice hoarse from smoke inhalation, but her focus never wavered. "She's breathing, but barely," she rasped, just as paramedics arrived to take over. Steffi was quickly stabilized and rushed to the hospital in critical condition, suffering from severe smoke inhalation, a significant head injury, and second-degree burns. Finn, though a doctor trained to handle trauma, found himself emotionally paralyzed. He was a husband whose world had nearly ended, and standing in the middle of it all was Sheila, the woman he had fought so hard to keep away from his family, now the very reason his wife was still alive. There was no time for accusations, no room for grudges, just raw, unfiltered shock. Sheila had done the unthinkable. She had saved Steffi's life. Part 3. The Unraveling, a betrayal deeper than flames. As the night unfolded, another, more disturbing truth began to claw its way to the surface. The fire department's inspection of the basement revealed more than just damage from the explosion. It revealed sabotage. The gas valve showed clear signs of tampering, with fresh scratches from a wrench. And then came the damning piece of evidence, a wrench, left behind at the scene, bearing Luna Nozawa's fingerprints. Suddenly, the narrative changed. Luna hadn't stumbled into an accident. She had orchestrated it. When confronted by Finn in the sterile, quiet hallway of the hospital, the weight of his discovery was crushing. His voice shook as he asked the question no one should ever have to ask someone they once trusted. "You were going to let her die?" Luna initially deflected, claiming she had simply gone to check on a plumbing issue, a routine fix for something Steffy had mentioned in passing. But the lie unraveled quickly under Finn's grief-stricken gaze. Her eyes welled with tears, but her silence spoke volumes. Whatever justification she might have had didn't matter anymore. Her actions had almost cost Steffy her life, and possibly Hayes's. When Rich learned what had happened, he stood frozen for a long moment. The idea that his daughter had narrowly escaped death was horrifying enough. But discovering that the would-be killer was someone he had allowed into their home, into their family, was a betrayal so profound it left him speechless. His rage simmered beneath the surface, but more than that, Ridge felt something worse. Failure. He had failed to protect his daughter, again. And then there was Sheila. Once the most hated woman in their lives, she was now, suddenly, standing in a light she had never known, that of a savior. She didn't boast about what she had done. She didn't demand gratitude. She simply stood in the hospital corridor, watching from afar as the family reeled. For the first time in her chaotic, destructive life, Sheila had done something purely, undeniably good. And no one, not even Ridge or Finn, could deny that fact. Sheila didn't cause the fire this time. She stopped it. And with that single act, everything had changed. Part 4. A New World Order. Redefining hero, villain, and family. So now, the bold and the beautiful fans are left to grapple with an entirely new landscape, one where the lines between good and evil have been violently redrawn. Is this the beginning of Sheila Carter's true redemption arc? Has the woman who has committed countless unforgivable acts finally found a reason to change? Or was saving Steffy merely a single, anomalous act of good in a lifetime defined by darkness? Can Steffy, if and when she recovers, ever forgive the woman who saved her, knowing she is also the greatest enemy she has ever known? And what punishment awaits Luna? What started as wounded pride had festered into obsession and, finally, into attempted murder. The sweet, misunderstood woman everyone pitied had slowly been consumed by a bitterness so profound that she was willing to erase her rival. Steffy wasn't just an obstacle. She was the source of Luna's humiliation, and for that, Luna believed she deserved to be erased. Her betrayal has left a wound on the family that may never heal. Will she face prison, or will she be cast out into a darkness of her own making? The fallout from this explosive night is as swift as it is emotionally shattering. The very fabric of the Forrester family has been torn asunder. Finn is left to reconcile the fact that the two most important women in his life, his wife and his biological mother, are now inextricably linked by an act of both unimaginable violence and incredible heroism. Ridge must confront his own failure to protect his family from a threat he unknowingly welcomed into their home. The questions that remain are as complex as the characters themselves. Do you believe Sheila has truly changed, or is this just another manipulation? Should she be forgiven for her past sins because of this one heroic deed? And what's next for Luna? Will she face justice, or will she find another twisted plan to exact her revenge? Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more B&B spoilers and analysis, and tap the bell icon so you never miss a twist. Thanks for watching. See you in the next dramatic episode of The Bold and the Beautiful. Thanks for watching this videos. Please hit the subscribe button for more updated news.